boy, Justin Robert Young.
Hey man, how you doing?
You know what? I had so before we get to the real thing, I woke up this morning. I had one of those, we do night attack late into the night, and so I have a disturbed sleep pattern, and so I had a bunch of bad dreams, and woke up super early, and then I did manage to fall asleep, and I had awesome dreams of hang gliding with David Rowan. I haven't told David Rowan yet, and then I thought we were going to talk about a lot about how, I don't know, frustrated I was with health and working out and all that nonsense. And then mere minutes before it became happy hour time, I got a message from superfan Gray Whitaker, hit me up saying, "Hey, I know you're about to do happy hour. Have you heard the news?" Link to Pendulet's tweet that James, the amazing Randi, has left us. So needless to say, I'll not be grousing about working out and dieting. And instead, you and I should, like, literally, I think we're 5 minutes into the two of us as a unit processing this.
Well, if we're 5 minutes into it, then I'm 3 minutes into it because you had 2 minutes before you told me.
Correct.
And
yes.
then
That was an
live.
unfair
Yeah.
advantage on my part, and I apologize.
No. I'm just saying, just so everybody knows exactly how raw it is. Like, I called in, which we famously call in very late, right before the show, and Brian was like, "Oh, have you heard the news?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Queevy's dead."
And Brian's like, "No, the amazing Randi." It's hard to even begin to talk about this because Randi is somebody that, without his presence, literally my life is totally different.
Well, and in a related subtweet here, I think that you bringing me in to interview and talk to Randi for a podcast was one of the seminal moments of forming our strong, stronger than friendship bond.
Yeah.
Over the last 10 years. At the time that I met you, Randi was already a god. And I suppose there's somebody out there who is unfamiliar with the person or the understanding of where we're at.
Sure.
I don't even know where to begin. I mean, this is
James
is raw and in the moment, and we're doing our best to,
James Randi is primarily known as a magician, a writer, and really the founder of modern skepticism, of the idea of that as an organized community. I don't think exists on the level that it exists on without a few kind of pillars. Skeptic Magazine's one of them, and the James Randi Educational Foundation, I think, would primarily be the other. What he did was bring a humanity to the idea of skeptical inquiry that had not existed before. He brought razzle dazzle to the idea of skeptical inquiry that really didn't exist before. When he goes, his friendship with his friendship with Johnny Carson, which led to the famous Yuri Geller bombing on the Tonight Show segment, was massive, but also his books. I mean, it's easy to think of this on one side of the coin where we understand that psychics are a joke. Like, think back to that scene in Ghostbusters where Bill Murray is
Peter
obviously
Venkman.
where he's obviously just trying to flirt with this co-ed by doing a little psychic test. But at the time that scene is written, we're in fairly early days of the idea of serious academic inquiries into psychic powers not only being accepted, but being fairly close to the norm. That this was like, well, we just got to explore it. Seems like people are doing it. James Randi, Banachek helped so tremendously to explode that concept, which exploited a slow-moving media, exploited incurious, awful scientific reporting, to make legitimately terrible people stars, like Yuri Geller and others of his ilk. What Randi did is, with a smile and a twinkle in his eye, said, no, 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 it's cooler to be on this side. It's smarter to be on this side. And that's something that, if you look at legacies in the world, like selling righteousness as radness might be the coolest fucking thing that has ever happened.
He also did something that nobody was able to do for millennia beforehand, which is extend the halo of academic scientific rigor and legitimacy to the field of magic and sleight of hand, conjuring. Conjuring, as we know it, is really maybe 200 years old as a performance art. If you want to designate Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin as sort of the archetype of the top hat and tails stage, I'm just doing conjuring, a type of juggling. Before that, the first written book about magic was Discovery of Witchcraft, which even then was sort of an expose, essentially the works of what James Randi would do later, essentially saying, hey man, this ain't witchcraft. This is a trick book that has some pages longer than others that make it easy to tap through or whatever. But when I think about James Randi's gift, my goodness, in a world of the 1960s, when he, and again, I almost certainly am going to get the details wrong, but as I've heard all of the details, secondhand, thirdhand, however, in the 1960s, it's James Randi on a late night, poorly listened to talk radio show where he had the courage, as somebody who understood the fundamentals of sleight of hand, who understood that scientific principles gave no room for psychic powers or predictions or any of that stuff, for him to take his own money and say, I will give $100 to anyone who can prove they have paranormal capabilities. And then now flash forward to the 1970s, you have a number of people, James Hynek, you have Yuri Geller claiming to have supernatural powers. You have, again, James Randi showing up and saying, I will offer $1,000 of my own money to anyone who could prove that this is real in double-blind test conditions. And then you flash forward to I'm in college, early 90s, and now we're at a point where he's been sued so many times as a person that he forms the James Randi Educational Foundation. He finds a wealthy benefactor who says, I will take $1 million of my real money, and we will take a picture of it, and we will lock it in a vault, and we will say to the entire world, you get $1 million if you could prove that you could divine where the water is, if you can predict what the future is, if you can demonstrate quite literally anything supernatural. And that's the part where you and Andrew enter the story as the boots on the ground who have to deal with these nutty folks who, whether through misguided reasons or diabolical, fraudulent reasons, perceive that they have supernatural powers. And you guys and Banachek and everybody who has aligned themselves with this pursuit of truth that James Randi heralded show up and very patiently go through the rigors of double-blind scientific analysis. What a gift James Randi has given and was as a person to the art of magic, to the science of deception and self-deception, to the science of rigorous double-blind testing. And beyond all that, I want to acknowledge all of those things, and maybe we'll take a moment and kind of dig up some great Randi moments to revisit. But for now, the first thing that I want to really think of is what a gift he gave to magic specifically and the credibility for this art. Because I've always regarded magicians, we're folk scientists. We're farmers before farming was a science. We're figuring out that in general you can fool someone by phrasing something this way or displaying things out of order that way. But it was James Randi who was really the bridge that linked us to the genius minds of Ray Hyman, to understand statistical probabilities. And I don't even know. Like to me, James Randi was an institutional bridge, but as a person, I will never forget, Justin, the grace you extended me by inviting me to drive an hour and a half down to do an interview with James the Amazing Randi. How blessed and amazed I was in that moment, how much that helped me to understand how giving of a person you were, and also how giving a person James Randi was, when convention after convention, every time I met him, dude was present and remembered you and was kind and appreciative and honest and direct. And weirdly, I feel like all of this is above my pay grade to even say, because for every Justin and Brian and Andrew Main, there are people who are closer in his orbit who know him even more as a person than we do. But I know how much he meant to me as an institution, and what few times I had to encounter him, how kind and wonderful he was.
I mean, yeah, he wasn't an institution to me. He was a guy I knew. You know, I knew him as a person before I really knew of him as a legend. Andrew was working for the Randi Educational Foundation when he was doing the after school program that was paid for by the Randi Educational Foundation at the school for which he had graduated from several years prior, and I was a part of. You know, that's the happenstance. I saw James Randi speak at my high school because it was literally down the road from the physical James Randi Educational Foundation in South Florida. That's the first time that I remember seeing him, as he was up on the South Plantation High School stage talking. And I was like, all right, well, this guy seems kind of cool, whatever. But I knew Andrew knew him. And it was during a summer that he said, hey, what would you like to be an intern here? And so I always like to say I'm the first intern at the James Randi Educational Foundation. And that's true technically, but it's because they didn't have an intern program. So I was just kind of this kid hanging around, and I got a chance to do it. I did a bunch of odd jobs around. It was an old law firm with, this kind of very odd layout considering what it was being used for. And, there was like, nobody ever sat at the front desk, which was odd because the entire layout was there to maximize like an agency or any kind of big office that you want to have the like moment that you walk in. But because nobody really wanted to sit at the front desk, there wasn't really any need for a front desk. Nobody ever sat there. There's this whole waiting room area that was just like dormant. And Randi was just the guy who ran the place. Before I read any of his books, before I really knew who he was just kind of a cool old dude that I knew. And throughout my time in high school and then going off to college, moving to New York, by the time I moved back down to South Florida and I was working with Andrew, we would just go every goddamn, was it Tuesday or Wednesdays? But we would go and there would just be a meeting where anybody who just wanted to kind of like shoot the shit would just show up and hang out with Randi and the other people that wanted to shoot the shit at the foundation. And I just remember Randi was he was a showman first. And that's why I think he's very, very special in this legacy, because not only was he somebody that knew he knew the important lessons, and they were so important. It was only the older I got that I could really even put into context how important the lessons that he brought along were at those times. But he was always there. He was always such a ham, man. He would just do these bits with his glasses where like he would wear glasses without frames in them because he famously had these big ass glasses, and he would just do these like magician's bits where he'd like take them off and like fake wipe them and then take them off again and like put his finger through them just so you would like laugh. He was and now I'm realizing I'm gonna have to go find these episodes, but I did a podcast with him, and that's what Brian was in there for. Was I did a podcast called The Amazing Show with James Randi, literally because, and this is something that we can now say that it happened, but it's like people around him have understood what a treasure he is for years and years and years, and we've always wanted to be able to preserve it. And so literally this show is not good. I'm not good on it. Like, but it's a very young Justin Robert Young. And I'm literally just trying to get stories that just fall out of fucking Randy. A lot of it isn't about magic or skepticism or anything like that. A lot of it's about like him hanging out with the Trapdoor Spiders Club,
or dishing on Isaac Asimov, where he would tell the story of how he would be chatting with Isaac Asimov and constantly be hearing this clicking and clacking the entire time, and then Isaac Asimov would casually admit, "Oh yeah, sorry, no, I'm writing another novel while we're talking." Like,
so the Trapdoor Spiders Club was Asimov and a bunch of other New York writers at the time that called themselves the Trapdoor Spiders because they all didn't like their wives. And so like they were like, oh, they trapped us, but we get to hang out on whatever day. He tells a great story about Orson Welles when he did shooting Happy Days. Oh man, what else? There's some great stuff that now I realize I have to find and put back out there, even no matter how. I've never wanted to put it back out there, mostly because like I knew at some point when Randy left us, there's going to be the reason why I did it will necessitate putting it back out there. But I didn't want to put it out there before in a half and half justification of, number one, I knew I was bad on him. And number two, I didn't want to like, do it for like the clout of like, oh,
right.
Look, I did a thing with Randy.
Right.
Now I think I gotta find them. They're definitely on a server somewhere. But yeah, it's I'm glad I got to say goodbye, and I didn't say goodbye in so many words, but when we went to the memorial,
the Johnny Thompson
of Johnny
memorial.
Thompson,
yeah, no, I felt that at the same time too, and now we're kind of wading into sort of a spiritual moment, but it definitely felt like there was something to that interaction with James Randi, and I remember afterwards thinking, I think that might be the last time I see him.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what else. I mean, like at that point, it was a gift to run into him. I couldn't believe he'd flown out, but he's also just somebody that simultaneously was kind of always on. He was old as shit, right? Like, but like at the same time, like he was never gonna fucking die. Like he was just like, he was this tiny, frail, like stick of dynamite.
He was old when I fell in love with him in college, 25 years ago, he was old when I read his book, The Encyclopedia of the Occult and blah, 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 other hoaxes. I forget what it's called. He was old when I saw him from a clip 20 years previous, debunking Yuri Geller. I feel like we should sort of make a greatest hits because somebody out there, and in fact, if you're in the chat, make yourself known. I feel like there's some greatest hits we should visit of James Randi.
I mean, yeah. The biggest one is the one that he's not in at all, and that is the Yuri Geller on the Tonight Show. And if you're
Oh, that's right.
if you're not familiar, here's the story. So Yuri Geller is world famous at this point. He is an Israeli. I don't even know what he was calling, a psychic. I don't know if he's calling, but he likes to change his title or whatever. But at this point, he is somebody that has psychic powers. He has legit psychic powers, and he likes to go around on television and talk about them. But Randy knows that he's a fraud and that what he's doing are using very, very well-worn magic methods. He knows through other magic circles, because again, magic is like 8 people wide and 9 people tall, that the way he does it is he has his cousin Shippy go and F with the materials that he is going to interact with on television. And Randy is good friends with Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson was a magic fan and was friends with Randy. So Carson books Yuri Geller, resists booking Yuri Geller for a while, but then winds up booking him and calls Randy and says, hey, if you flew out to LA and you were backstage, could you just know where everything was, make sure that you placed everything where it needed to be, and told everybody who was allowed in places, who wasn't? Like, would you be able to make him just totally eat shit on television? And Randy's like, 100%. Gotcha, fam. So he comes out to LA, sets everything up. Apparently Shippy is like furious and he's screaming at people backstage because he can't get into these certain closets.
This is the part that 20, 30 years ago might have upset mentalists, but I don't find disturbing to reveal right now. Like one of his tricks would be to picture a bunch of film canisters. By the way, for anybody born in this century, film canisters used to be emulsified films that would take an image and then you would have them developed later. But they used to be made out of aluminum or tin or what have you. But what you could do is you could sort of knock out the bottom of them. So instead of being a perfect cylinder that rested solidly on a table, you could sort of bow them out so that, let's say you have 12 film canisters. One of them is filled with water, and that one happens to be the one with the bowed out bottom. Then what you could do is with your knee, you could knock the table, and 11 of them would stay perfectly still, and the 12th one would wobble, and that's how you knew which one had the water in it. Likewise, when it came to bending spoons, there's a number of in-the-moment distractions you can do to basically say, hey, look over there, and then bend a spoon. Likewise, The Amazing Randi, in fact, on the PBS special, even revealed how you would fatigue the metal so that it essentially was ready to break at a moment's notice, and then get it to bend right in front of somebody and look like it melted in half. So I assume that this and many other methods were the things that James Randi told Johnny Carson and his production staff about going into this.
Yes. And so Shippy is furious and he's banging around on stuff, and then this is the famous. I guess, are we gonna go to this? This is the famous clip here, where Johnny knows that this is that he is going to eat balls. Yuri does not, and Yuri is doing his best to flail through this.
Now, for what it's worth, I should disclose gossip I heard. This is totally unverified. I have no idea if it's true. I can't source it correctly, but the story I heard is that on top of this, like, Yuri smelled a rat on the appearance beforehand and insisted to a bodyguard that he see the materials, and the bodyguard said, no, you're not allowed to touch them. He's like, fine, I won't touch them. At least let me see them. And the story I heard, this is totally apocryphal, was that the bodyguard opened up the sealed whatever and showed the thing. And he's like, look at that. Look at that spoon. It's made of titanium. There's no way you can bend that. And the guy, sort of like, look, I'll bend it right in front of you. Okay, all right, you proved it. And if I remember correctly, this appears to be the full thing. But I think that after the fact, Yuri Geller sort of implied that he had made those ridges in a spoon afterward and was able to claim success. But meanwhile, this, and the only reason I'm sharing this is because otherwise this is nothing but pure misery to watch. Take a look at this.
And he's most interesting. And I tend to be sometimes skeptical, which may not be fair to him. You should probably have an open mind on this. But I would like to mention that he will be at Houston, Texas on September the 20th, and New York City's Town Hall on the 25th. And we hope we're going to see some rather astounding things tonight. Would you welcome, please, Uri Geller.
By the way, before anybody feels bad for Uri Geller getting set up, let me remind you that at this point of his career, he was accepting $1 million at a time from oil companies to fly around in a helicopter and use his quote-unquote psychic powers to tell multi-billion-dollar industries where to drill for oil.
He's a profiteer scumbag. Do not feel bad for him.
So immediately he goes on the defensive right here.
We have only met.
This scares me.
This scares you? Well, this is we just got some things together here, and as I said, as you progress and do what you want to do tonight, well, you can tell us what you would like to try, and
Whoa. Hold on, he's just gonna take me out like that?
we'll leave it up to you.
I'll try when I'll really feel up to it, okay?
That's what I understand. I have seen you on television before, and you say that sometimes you have to be in a certain frame of mind. You sometimes will pass on a particular experiment because you're honest and say, I don't feel.
Very generous of Johnny Carson from the beginning to give him this big old off-ramp.
Johnny knows. He's like, hey, look, like, you want to do it? You can do it. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But just so you know, we're going to put all these toys out in front of you. You're the toy man. So if you don't want to do it, you're going to look like an asshole just begging off of it. If you just beg off it, you're going to have to take a 50-50 or take a shot at one of these things.
Exactly.
Feel it, or I am not getting the thought. Is that true?
That's true. I really have to be in the mood to do things and have them happen.
Mm-hmm.
And many times, nothing really happens.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if I'm in front of 3,000 people or 10 people. I do my best. And of course, I'm really talking about time now.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, if I had time to bend a nail, an hour, 2 hours, or unlimited time, then it'll happen in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really not only up to my mood, but up to
By the way,
to the people who are...
Johnny Carson, legendary at keeping a conversation afloat. His response to everything,
Keep going. And by the way, and this thing goes for 23 minutes. I don't know if we'll watch all of it.
No. I think it's shorter than that, but I do think you get a sense of it. I think he tries, and then we see where it goes. Hold on, let me do this.
You know, watching it and wanting it to happen. And that's it.
Now, a lot of people, you run into this, I'm sure, all the time. Most people, if they don't understand something, tend to be very skeptical.
Well, I heard of many people who do telepathy, and but you see, I'm also a skeptic. I mean, for instance, if you'll tell me that there is somebody you know and does it, I'll also want to see to believe. Yes, I'm sure there are other people. I do not know if there are people who can bend them or break things.
All right, so here, we'll move it forward.
We have also, as per your request earlier this afternoon, and if you want to
by
try
the way,
that or whenever you feel
for
like
the audio
it,
listeners, right now, Yuri Geller is just hangdog. He is just like, he's not looking at Johnny. He's not looking at the camera. He's literally just looking down at this table full of shame that he can't do shit with. And again, like, if you are unfamiliar with this, he was so popular. He was so good on television. He had breathless magazine articles written about him in reputable publications that academic institutions were looking into the validity of this phenomenon. Like, that's the level of effect that he was having on worldwide society.
one of our staff members did some drawings which have been sealed in an envelope, and I'd like you to take your own pace when you feel like you want to.
Which, by the way, what a great thing. Where he's just like, yeah, we've seen the first 2/3 of your routine. We already did them. You had no control over them. Would you like to go straight to the finale? And he's like, well, I do a magic routine. You're like, oh, is it magic? No, it's real powers.
Try anything.
I'm gonna show what I got, and if I'm wrong,
By the way, this clip with Barbara Walters is the foundation upon which I built the simpatico routine.
Really?
The idea that an image could look like an amorphous thing. I think he interprets it as mountains with circles over them, and then it's revealed that it's two stick figures holding hands. That's where that whole routine came from.
then I'm wrong, but it really came very strong in. It could be two mountains with a round thing on, or two people.
Can I show?
Yeah, I'd like to. Am I wrong?
You're right.
I'm right. Good.
This is the drawing that Geller has made to correspond to the target object. The rectangle on the clipboard represents the TV screen in Geller's mind on which he claims to project the image he is trying to draw. As you can see, he is quite elated about getting the right answer.
You want to try that particular experiment first?
This edit is
And,
amazing.
These objects out here are, we have some nails, we have some keys, we have, as you can see, some forks, we have some aluminum canisters. These are the type of aluminum canisters I guess a roll of film would come in. All of these objects have been supplied by us. You did not bring anything here at all.
So at this point, I have to imagine, Justin, that Johnny Carson is dealing with fighting impulses of, number one, enjoying the fact that Yuri is twisting in the wind, but also, like, at the end of the day, dude's responsible to do a good show, and he's watching his show get dead as a doornail as Yuri sits there horrified by the setup he just did for him.
Johnny does not care at this point. Johnny's like, he would like to do a good show, but this is pre-DVR, pre-YouTube. Like, as soon as this shit airs, it's done forever. I don't know. We're lucky they even taped it, right? At this era of television. They're just like, whatever, it goes out. No one ever's going to give a rat's ass about this era. Like, it's just worthless television. But no, he is here to prove a point, and this was the point that he was making with James Randi.
We have a small, what you would call a file box with a die in it, which I understand sometimes someone can place the die in the box and shake it up, and you have a very
Let
good,
me describe to you your own act.
law of averages
And what you
naming
usually do.
the number that is on the top spot of the die without touching the box or opening it whatsoever.
Okay, so hold on. Let me again point out the brilliance of the friendship of Johnny Carson and Amazing Randy. Both of them understand how Geller was able to become so famous. And that is the lack of curiosity and straight out laziness of journalists in general,
Right.
and particularly television journalists. So what he's doing is nothing more than research. Yes, Randy's the one who's giving him all the, like, look, I know everything this dude does. I know every movie he makes. I know every, like all these are not complicated methods. He's even using kind of standard magic props. So we can provide everything for you, and we can make sure that they are not gimmickable, especially if you keep them away from his guy backstage. All he's doing is just handing his entire career to him because he's seen it. Research. And again, this is the brilliance. This was the brilliant idea of Randy, was to give this simple concept razzle dazzle. Research it, come up with a fair way to do it, and then go ahead and try. Like, that's it. And we're watching it in this brilliant, excruciating anticlimax.
Like to try anything here?
Why don't you ask some more questions?
Want me to ask you some more questions? Yes,
May I
that'll
ask,
work.
when did you discover this power, Yuri?
Well, I was.
Oh my
I think
God,
I was
that's
really born
Khan.
with this power.
That's Ricardo
And,
When did you
Montalban.
discover it?
Yep.
The first time I was about 7 years old.
Yeah,
started
whatever. Stories.
Finding a hidden object in 10 cans, of course. I did it
Boom mic
repeatedly all the time.
in the shot.
Right.
We present a case of a double-blind experiment in which someone not associated with the project comes into the experimental room, places an object into a can chosen at random from 10 aluminum.
So this is the explanation of essentially what James Randi championed with all of his $1 million challenge experiments, right? Which, boy,
And for the record, Andrew Main
legend.
worked with Randy to design these $1 million challenge trials, right? So he would somebody calls in and says, I can figure out where something is, right? And so, like, let's say water divination, right? That's one that happened a lot. I know where water is, and I can find it with these sticks I got. Okay, so you would agree that if in 3 trials where you did not know in which bucket of 10 buckets, and you were not able to come anywhere closer than 50 feet from them, that in 7 trials you would be able to get a statistically higher number than average? And they're like, yes. And or 9 times out of 10 they would argue about the specifics and then never do it, right? But Andrew's job was to come up with the thing that you would then negotiate with them to say, all right, well, here's what we're willing to do. Here's what, if you believe the limits of your powers are, let's go. And to Randy's credit, man, Randy always was like, I hope we find it.
Yeah.
I hope every time. I hope that even he later in life was of the assumption that they were going to find something that was technologically beyond our capacity.
Well, and that was how he couched it. Certainly in interviews, people would ask like, well, what are you going to do if somebody wins the $1 million? And he, I believe, very earnestly, very legitimately spelled out the fact that if whatever happens, because for every one of those trials, both sides had to agree to the test conditions. The one side had to agree that they could do it under double-blind conditions. James Randi Educational Foundation had to agree that this would break our understanding of natural physics. And James Randi's position was consistently, if they win the $1 million, that means we have discovered something so important, so fundamental, so transformative that it is almost certainly worth many multiples more than the $1 million we paid. So all of us are cheering for this to work. And of course, it never worked. All right, here's Yuri.
Try the water.
Now, since we have been gone, let me explain to the audience at home that he has not touched these objects in any way.
He's skipping forward. He's putting his hands over it. He's doing this stuff.
Some people call it a sort of a water roulette. But
God.
Take gently the middle one out.
How do you feel that dead air?
The middle one out. Remove that. Obviously, that is empty.
Oh, so he's calling out the ones that are empty.
I'm sorry, I did not mean to do that. I was trying to move over to get a better look.
He is really suspicious, I'm having a hard time with you.
I don't mean to be, Yuri. I really don't.
Just keep looking.
There's this moment where he calls out the production.
And I'm telling the viewers, if I miss, then I miss. I won't pass here. Usually I pass if I... Usually I pass if...
God, this is a lot of dead air.
Let me rest a little, all right?
All right.
Here's where he starts to push back.
I'm surprised because before this program, your producer came and he read me at least 40 questions you're going to ask me.
Well, I can ask you all kinds of questions if you'd like me to ask you questions.
I have to have time. And, give me a little more time.
All right. We'll cut away from a commercial, and I will verify, and everybody in the studio will verify that nobody will touch the objects. Okay?
Right.
Because I don't want to push it on that, but obviously we don't have unlimited time on a television show. I wish we did.
Okay.
Which one is the breast?
He just pulled out a box of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
He pulled out a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and then asked him which one the breast was.
Oh my God! No, there is I believe if you go on YouTube and type in PBS Amazing Randy, or sorry, I wrote Randy with a Y. It's I. Let me see if that gives me anything different. There is a fantastic, Secrets of the Psychics is a Nova special.
When school isn't a place you have to be.
Let me mute this ad so I can subvert the monetary. There we go. It's a 56 minutes on on YouTube. Man, it's
Nova,
fantastic.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Explored the world of the paranormal and tested
so
claims
good.
of supernatural
Oh, that's
powers.
right. We didn't even get to how he
Benny
debunked Peter Popoff.
Oh, Peter Popoff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Benny Hinn was doing pretty much the same thing, though.
Yeah. So Randy he got Popoff because dude was having his wife
Over an FM
radio,
transmitter.
radio
into his ear.
him the radio. So basically, this is a televangelist preacher who was would do the like I hear that there is a man who cannot walk who wants to make $1 million, and his name is it. Oh, God is telling me, is it George? Is it George from Houston? And George from Houston would, of course, be shocked and amazed that God was calling down to him. But you're able to hear in this the actual transmissions that are coming in to this motherfucker's headset.
Yeah, here we go. Right here.
Alice Gould.
He knew their names.
Stand up, Alice.
As well as the afflictions they'd come to cure.
God is touching that thyroid condition right now. God is touching your nerves right now. God is touching your eyes. Just lift up your hands, get ready, here it comes.
He also knew the personal details of their
We're going to
lives.
hear good news from Charles before everything is over. I'll tell you, he's going to be completely delivered because of your prayers, because of your faith. Here it comes, complete healing in Jesus. Ooh, mighty name right now, right now, right now. Amen. It's all right to praise the Lord.
I suspected that Popoff's revelations were other than divine. The radio scanner we brought to the hall picked up a decidedly worldly source.
Hello, Petey. Can you hear me? If you can't, you're in trouble.
Popoff was being prompted by his wife through a wireless earpiece.
John?
Deary Johnson.
She'd gotten her information from prayer cards filled out by the faithful before the show began.
She wants to get rid of the walker.
You want to get rid of this walker, sister? Oh, glory. How long have you been walking on that walker?
About 3 years.
3 years.
She was at 1627 10th Street.
1627 10th Street?
Is that right? That's right. She has arthritis all over.
Burning this arthritis right out of your body. Take a few steps just to make the devil mad. Hallelujah. That's it. Just move around a little bit. There she goes. Just walk with me. Oh, glory to God. She's not going to need that walker anymore. God's just putting new strength, new health, burning that arthritis out of her body. Just keep going. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I was able to arrange for another broadcast of the Miracle Crusade on The Tonight Show, but this time the wireless prompting was included.
Dude, again, Johnny
1987,
Carson.
Peter Popoff declared bankruptcy.
Greater is he.
Dude, so crazy.
Greater is he.
I mean, look, if it's not for James Randi's
The
friendship
laying
with
on
Johnny
of hands.
Carson, this show isn't happening.
Yeah.
It's like my friendship with Andrew Main is predicated on the fact that that Johnny Carson, without wanting any credit for it, put money into that after-school program for which I became friends with Andrew, and then from that I do iTricks, and then from that I know Brian. I mean, and that's why for me it's something that's personal because I don't know if my life is anywhere close to where it is without the fact that I just went to school down the road from a fucking wizard, man. And he, I mean, again, it's hard to even put into words that, what I mean, how much he meant to Andrew, how much he meant to Andrew's life, and then by derivative of that, how much he meant to mine.
Can I throw something out there that I wonder if it resonates with you. Is I know what I am feeling is, for lack of a better word, an embarrassment for being so far down to the edge of James Randi's shadow. And you and I have talked about this off the record, where it's like, there's a billion people ahead of us in line to express their feelings. And there's some kind of conflict that I personally feel, and I don't know if you're feeling the same thing, where I'm almost afraid to go too far, because, I mean, we're broadcasting, we're in public, whatever. And there's a fear of being too far down the rabbit hole of authentically speaking about how you're feeling, for fear of, it's like, who are we? We're way down the chain of command of everybody.
I don't feel that at all.
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe that's a me thing then.
Well, no, I mean, I had a personal relationship with him. Like,
yes,
I know,
yes.
like, and so this was not a celebrity that I met. Like, again, he was a guy that I kept in contact with until, he knew who I was when we
saw
went
him.
there. I mean, I know
year,
his family and the people around him. Like, he was not. Again, he was not a guy I admired initially. He was a guy that was Andrew's boss that I saw once speak at my high school. It was through my time that I spent there, and all the time scanning his articles for another book he was going to write. Like, I don't personally, I mean, look, I personally have my own James Randi story. This is not something that I feel on the periphery of. Now, did he have deeper relationships with a bunch of different people that are rich and complex, up to and including the people that they made a documentary about? Like, yes, but I don't feel that I am speaking out of turn for my relationship.
I think you're 100% right. I think that you and I had inverse experiences. You knew the man and discovered the legend. I knew the legend and was fortunate enough to meet the man. And I suppose that's why I feel a little bit twisty about, appreciating him in public like we're doing right now. But I don't know. That's all I wanted to explore.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million people that I think, I've either had peripheral interaction with them, or I've adored their work, and then I've come into contact and they've been able to become, acquaintances or friends of friends or something like that.
So if you
Randy was a real guy. I mean, Randy was flawed. Randy, I mean, to be honest with you, Randy should have been even bigger than he was. And I think I mean, think about it like this. In the aughts, you had this explosion of books about skepticism and atheism that just dominated, right? And Penn wrote one, and Hitchens wrote one, and all
Dawkins
these Dawkins. Yeah. I mean, you had this gigantic, massive explosion. And that's why I was scanning all these articles when I was the intern there, scanning these articles because he wanted them for research, because he wanted to either put together another compendium or he was writing stuff. And it's like, it's hard to say somebody who's achieved so much that you should have done more. But that was my perspective when I was there. I was like, look at all these disciples of yours, people who revere you, that people want to hear more, especially at that moment. Now, on the other side, he creates the amazing meeting. He creates this union of a skeptic thought. He creates all these stars that are to this day kind of glittering in the orbit, either in skepticism or outside of it. And that is what it is. But I still think, man, he still had so much. I mean, that's why I sat there with him in that JREF library, and I was just literally prompting him. And sometimes he would just fucking not want to do these podcasts. I gotta find these because he would not want to do them. And all I knew I had to do, my only goal was to get him talking. If I could just get him talking, he would go. And he's such a great storyteller, such an amazing, charismatic storyteller. But I was just like, in that moment, I was like, this has to happen so they live somewhere. So these stories, because Randi is an icon in his field. He's an icon as a thinker. He's a mentor to so many that are even now becoming mentors to so many. But he was just such an amazing person to be around with, such a life, man. Like, I remember him telling me about doing his first buried alive stunt and how he used to sneak sandwiches in so he could eat while he was in, and like where he would sneak his sandwiches in. And like, there's just I only had one grandfather that I knew. My father and my grandfather's side died. My grandfather on my mom's side was very much of his greatest generation, not very talkative, right? He was a proud guy, he was a focused guy, but he wasn't exactly a raconteur. Sitting there across the table from Randi recording those stories is the closest that I will ever get to having an elder statesman in my life just wax poetic about the amazing, brilliant life that he led. And that was 2007. That was 13 years ago. He lived another 13 years. He's an icon, an absolute icon, intellectually, charismatically, and in terms of his legacy. There's no other way to say it.
And I can't think of anything to improve on that. So let me just say, if you've listened to all this and you're still, who the heck is James Randi? Just check out Secrets of the Psychics on Nova on YouTube. Google the legacy of somebody who dedicated his life to the pursuit of scientific truth in a world filled with lies. Somebody who understood the difference between deceiving for joy and deceiving for profit. Understand this is somebody who brought an entire artistic practice under the umbrella of academic legitimacy, who has founded so many, directly or indirectly, has founded so many of the principles of behavioral sciences. A great magician, a great guy, somebody that everybody was happy to see, a good friend. Man, R.I.P. James Randi. You got anything else, Justin?
No. An icon. Rest in power.
Yeah. I'm not even going to play that jaunty happy hour thing. We'll just say thanks for everybody who hung out with us. This hit us by surprise. Welcome to what happens when 2 minutes before going live, we find out some bad news about a lost friend. Thank you to everybody who showed up. We love you guys. Diamond Club, you're the best.
See you.